I worked for a well-known Western defensive military alliance to build an application to improve preventing terrorism. Hi, I am Diederik Krols from Belgium. I am principal consultant in a small company called UTU Consult, which specializes in application development and security. During the day, I help our customers build and deploy and maintain complex production applications. And during the night, I run a blog site and corresponding GitHub source code repositories, mainly on XAML technology, WinUI 3, under the name of XAML Brewer.
Hello, my name is Gabby Bilka. I'm a product manager on the WinUI team. I've been on the team for a little over 2 years, and before that I was a software engineer working on Windows servicing and delivery, so Windows Update. When did you first get started developing or writing apps?
Well, a long time ago. At the age of 14, actually, I bought a computer. Now, I see you thinking that's nothing special. Every kid has a computer these days. But okay, I was 14 at the late 1970s, early 1980s. And then at that time, having a computer as a kid was really special. And I actually bought that thing not to play games with, but I wanted to control the pixels and the sound of my television set. So actually, immediately after I bought it, I started writing games for it. 10 years later, I became a professional and full-time application development developer. After I graduated from the military academy in the Air Force, I started a career as a full-time developer, and I'm still a full-time developer. I started that career on the mainframe, writing applications for the big IBM mainframes. We moved directly from the mainframe to Visual Basic 4 and Microsoft SQL Server. And since then, I'm actually developing in the Microsoft stack. Now, Gabby, can you tell me about your role at Microsoft?
Yeah, on the WinUI team specifically, it has been really cool to see what I've been working on and share it with others. Kind of being able to easily say, here was, I worked on this new control, right out of the gate, and you can see it here in the start menu. Even just explaining to friends, parents, other people in the industry, it was really cool to be able to be like one little part of the big Windows product. In general, both on the WinUI team and the previous team I was on, it has been really cool to work with and learn from people who have built the technologies that I'm now incrementally working on today. So you mentioned XAML Brewer. So when did you start your blog, and what do you like about blogging?
Just like you, apparently, I always loved sharing knowledge and keep on learning. And with blogging, you can do both of this. I've been blogging for, well, more than 20 years now. I've always been active on the corporate blog posts of the companies that I worked for, and internal in the local wiki environments, only partly to show off, hey, look what I can. But well, mainly it was actually to share knowledge, improve the knowledge of the teams in the different projects, and well, maybe get feedback from it. Because I still think, and that's why I still like it after all those years, that blogging is one of the best ways to learn a new piece of software technology. How does your team collect user feedback for WinUI and WinApp SDK?
There's a few different channels that we use: Windows apps and services, so internally, and so they are creating bugs, creating feature requests internally sometimes if they're working on, what's next in Windows. And so we use Azure DevOps for that, so a basic kind of work management. But externally, we have our GitHub repo where we read different comments, questions, discussions that are coming in, kind of get a handle from that, but also issues, bugs, things that are specifically filed. We also host the WinUI community calls. So even just from the questions that we get live from there, that kind of gives us a signal of how we're doing, maybe what should we focus on next for that audience. But a lot of it is working with every different user of the platform and trying to figure out from all those pieces of feedback, analyze those, figure out what's next is best for a product. What has been the favorite project that you've worked on?
There are actually two types of favorite projects. Firstly, there are the ones where you impress yourself. The projects that you thought at the start that were actually technically impossible. And I've successfully done some of those. For example, in WPF, I helped building an app for real-time monitoring of thousands of sensors in a nuclear power plant with a high-level overview, and then you could zoom in at any level, replay things, and that was a very challenging project, and it became a successful product afterwards. I also helped building a Street View app in Silverlight before we had that other Street View application. That was an application for professional users, for police and fire departments and things like that. And also there at the beginning of that project, I said, well, this is really impossible to build. And I was really surprised by the good results we have. Another type of project are the ones that where you have the ability to actually contribute to society. I worked, for example, for a well-known Western defensive military alliance to build an application to improve preventing terrorism. A role with my current customer, I have now the opportunity to work on applications to make the healthcare in our country cheaper and more accessible to the citizens. What has been your favorite project you worked on so far at Microsoft?
One of my first projects was making the pips bridger control in WinUI, and I really enjoyed it because it was kind of the first time I saw from nothing to this is in Windows 11 and people are seeing it even though it's just a couple of dots on the start menu. It was really great to work with that team. I'm excited for different projects to come and kind of taking that, hey, this was one thing from zero to the end, and finding also other impactful projects for that. I really like to teach as well. I've actually just joined Microsoft Teal's their philanthropy, which is bringing CS education across the United States. I've recently attended my first training, and I'm excited to start for the next school year to teach CS to students at this high school.
I saw you even recently live development for a big audience. You actually helped to lead a session at Microsoft Build, including live development. What was it like?
Yeah, it was a little bit scary because it was live.
I can imagine. Yes, it was live.
But a lot of those sessions there are pre-recorded, so if something weird happened, then you could kind of cut that out and recompile, fix your typo. But for that, it was a lot of preparation to kind of get those typos away, or also figure out how to improv and get around that. So that was purely presentational, that feeling of it. But it was really cool to hear kind of from where around the world people were coming and joining the talk from, and realizing how many people kind of were seeing this and knowing that we're filling a gap that WinUI 3 had. And so the session, I realized I didn't mention that, the session was, building your first WinUI 3 app. And so kind of just from zero to a usable app in an hour, using a lot of the different components.
Was indeed impressive.
Thanks. What do you think is the future of app development with all of your experience?
With my experience, I can say the future in software development is totally unpredictable. We never know where we are going to be next year, but there are some things that, however, I'm looking forward. In the relatively short term, I'm actually looking forward to see XAML getting back the place it deserves in desktop development, not only in relatively simple sandbox stored apps, but for rich and well-integrated tools and utilities. In the longer term, I'm very curious to see what further impact machine learning will have on my job as a developer. And I see products today like, how is it called? Visual Studio IntelliCode and GitHub Copilot. What will they grow into? How will they change our development work? What if those things start interacting with for example, user interface design? Not only completing code, but moving buttons around and things like that on the XAML forms that we write. So I'm really curious to see what will happen in the very long term. I'm curious to see what quantum computing will bring us. What advice would you give to students who are at this moment starting their career in development?
Yeah, for students, that's including, both maybe formally at a university or college or high school, but also self-taught I found the biggest thing for me was taking a diversity of classes, like a large slew of classes, because I realized what areas I liked a little bit more than others and what niches I could find. I think there's so many more opportunities in software development and computer science outside of what you'd think of for software engineering. That was where I found a love for playing with wearables, e-textiles, and that kind of thing, because I also studied dance as well as human-computer interaction at school, and so that was where I was able to combine like arts and CS together, and for me that's what I loved to do. There are many different opportunities out in computer science and software development, data science, UX design, that kind of thing. So I encourage you to explore. It was fantastic talking to you.
It's
Thanks
mutual.
so much for joining us.
I love talking to you and listening to you.